All right. Welcome to the second ever Stay Gold Gun live stream. I'm going to talk about basically, it's going to mostly talk about my knife collection because it's something that I was thinking about making videos on, but I wasn't sure if it was something that I really wanted to dedicate that much time to or if anyone would be interested. So I thought, well, make it live. And then if no one's interested, they can just stop watching, which I guess the same thing applies to anything else, but this is the situation that we're in right now. So, no one's in here yet. So I wonder about talking about anything too involved to no one. But if someone were to re-watch this, they would not want to. I guess maybe if you're starting one of my live streams, I'll put chapters in. Just skip ahead. The beginning part's going to be bad. Well,
talk about the cat.
Oh yeah. I guess before we get into this, I'll just talk about Cagney, our kitten. He's been in some of the shorts now, and I'd like to get him over here, but he's busy playing with a M249 bag for a belt. Oh, here he is. I'm being presented with the kitten by my lovely assistant. Look, Cagney. He's going to start biting the computer soon. You gonna be a sweet guy and just hang out on the desk? No, here you go. So Cagney was a street urchin. He, I think, was born underneath the local coffee shop, and my wife was at the gym, and he came up to the door and was looking in the door like, "Someone, please save me! I hate being outside." And someone at the gym had told her that they'd seen him the night before sleeping curled up in a cinder block. So it's a pretty bleak life for the beginning for Cagney. But now he's just loving life, walking around on guns and eating all the food he can get, including his cousin Ellie's. And he's at least doubled in weight since we've got him. So we're happy to have him. He's a cute guy. All right, into the knives. So what's interesting is this knife, as crappy as it is, made in China, made of 440 steel, is actually the whole reason that my gun collection started. My friends were at a carnival. Welcome. And this was in a ride with them, but jangling about. And for some reason, they grabbed it, and then for some reason they decided that I should have it, so they gave it to me. And then I never really carried a knife, and I was like, you know what? I'll carry this thing on me. And then I started kind of to enjoy having a knife on me. And then I bought this crappy gas station knife from a gas station. Welcome, Shane. It's a friendly knife. And so then I started collecting knives a little bit. Like I just would get them here and there. Like I had like maybe 3. And then the knives translated into BB guns somehow. I'm not sure totally how that translated. And then, as I explained on the last stream, the BB guns translated into real guns. So it's pretty interesting that the gun collection that I have now started from this thing right here. It's crazy. So a fun one that I have is this. It's called a super automatic. and it's just an old stiletto. The blade is like butter knife level of sharpness and whatever, but I always wanted an out the front, and this looks like a classic stiletto. It looks just like, you know, something from a Italian ruffian movie, or from The Outsiders, which is where Stay Gold comes from. So this little stiletto should be like a part of the channel, really. I got this at the beach at Lincoln City at a little shop. And then the first knife that I got as more of like an adult knife buyer was the Cold Steel AK-47. The marketing really worked. Just by naming it the AK-47 was enough for me to be interested in getting one. And it is very sharp and it's nice. It has a really good lockup. It has this little clip thing on it, so you can do like the Kershaw wave opening when you take it out of your pocket. I always wanted a push knife, so I got this really janky one from, I'm not sure, maybe Andy and Back's military surplus store. And the push knife is, I should just use these for videos or something, because they just have a very iconic look. It's like a bad guy knife. This is a really cheap one, as you can tell from this very fancy like holster thing that it has. This is a fun one. This is one that I got at an antique store. It's a lighter. Henry Bowers, yes. It's a lighter. I need to fill it up with fuel, but it's also a little tiny stiletto. It's just kind of a cute knife slash lighter. So I guess if you were like, you're like, hey, you want a light? And then you like go to light someone's cigarette, and then you're like, never mind, I'm going to stab you. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then I have just a classic Victorinox Swiss Army knife. Just a 4 thing, like a bottle opener, screwdriver, 2 bottle openers, tweezers, and a toothpick. Very handy. I think I've heard that you actually can use some of the tools on these to work on the Swiss K31. Shane, remind me what the brand of that knife that you got me is that's Swedish. And then I have this that I inherited from my grandfather-in-law. It's made by Puma, and I think these are made in Germany. I can't remember, but it's got like a stag horn handle, and it's called the Puma White Hunter. Yeah, made in Germany. Genuine Puma Master. But it's a nice fixed blade. It would be good for outdoors stuff, except that I don't want to mess it up. I have 2 kukris, one that's made by Cold Steel and one made by Ontario, and they're in the garage because they are like real working knives. So I didn't grab the dirty old yard work knives. All right. So, oh, it says on here too. Oh, it's a Boker. Oh, and it's German. I don't know why I thought it was Swedish. But my buddy Shane in the comments gave me this for Christmas, and I guess this is like the Puma, where it's just kind of a cool thing to have. And I guess because I do make YouTube videos, I could have some guy wielding it. And then I'll just go through all the fixed blades that I have now. This is one that I like because I really wanted a big knife made by Benchmade, and they don't make a lot of large knives. And this one is technically made by Balisong before they became Benchmade. It's called the Bushmaster 760, and it's a kukri style. It's a little smaller than the typical kukri, I guess, depending on where. I mean, like a traditional kukri from Nepal would be much larger than this, but it's nice. And I'm not sure if it's covered by the Life Sharp warranty, if I can take this into Benchmade. I imagine that they would sharpen it. It's kind of older, rarer, and more collectible. So I don't know if I'll ever use it for more like hard use outdoors stuff. It would be cool for it though. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask, and then I can just interject answers versus just plowing through knives. But until then, what we've got going now is a little Spyderco, and I do mean little. I think this is the Dragonfly. This is the Spyderco Dragonfly 2. You might not think that a knife this tiny would be that handy, but it is kind of nice, like backpacking or something. If you needed like a just a small knife to do something, it weighs nothing and it takes very little space. So it's pretty convenient to have something little tiny like this. It's just a cute little Spyderco. Now, can't really flick it open. So that's a fun one. I have a lot of Benchmades. Being from the Pacific Northwest and them being from Oregon City, Oregon, it was really convenient just to drive down there and drop knives off and have them sharpen them for free. And it's cool. You can just go into the factory and check it out. This is kind of a cool knife. I wanted it because it's an axis assisted, which means it has this axis lock, but it also is assisted. And I think this is the only one that has aluminum frame. The other ones are all polymer framed. So you just give it a little juice with your finger, and it just pops open with a little bit of tension. So it's quick to deploy, and it's a nice one. Osborne, is this really? Yeah, this is an Osborne emissary, and this is a first production, number 61 of 750. I was thinking about selling this, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like it, and it's first production. It's kind of cool. Collecting knives is fun. I think after Washington passed the no more private sales. Hello, Casey. After Washington passed the no more private sales law, all the private sales that I used to do for guns kind of dried up. I mean, that was really the point of the legislation, is just to make it harder for people to sell guns. And so I went through a little knife collecting phase, and it was fun to kind of do the same thing where, like this one, I met up at a gas station and bought it from a guy and from Craigslist, I'm pretty sure. It could have been from a forum. But it was also nice to just have things shipped to your house. You know, like you can't really do that with guns unless you have a FFL. This is another one that's kind of cool. It's another Osborne design, and it's another first production. It's the 940, which is like the classic. It's a classic Benchmade design, but this one is the 940-1, I believe, is the designation that they gave it. Yeah, the 940-1. So this has carbon fiber as a carbon fiber frame, and it has S90V steel. This is a first production, also 146 of 750. This is nice. It's like it's so funny. Like when you start buying knives, you start being like, "Oh, I can wear this with certain outfits." Like this would be like if I was wearing a suit or something, I could put this in the pocket because it's really light, so you don't really notice it that much. But then also it looks nice. It would go well with a suit. So I don't know how dorky that made me sound, but probably a fair amount. I guess I am a dork, so it's fitting. Yeah, this is another cool one.
Casey says I really like some of the Microtech knives, but they're so expensive.
Oh yeah, Microtech is cool. They have a great look, but I guess I always just stuck mostly to Spyderco and Benchmade, just because I like the warranty and stuff that they have, and the Life Sharp thing for the Benchmates for sure is super nice. And Spyderco has a similar deal. This is a cute one. It has a coated steel blade, and I think it's the 771. It's another Osborne. This is 154 cm. It's a really tiny axis lock, if you can see that. It's, I don't know where, I can't remember where I got this, but I just thought it was really cool. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Dragonfly. They're sort of a similar size, and it's just, if you needed a little tiny penknife to have on you, that would be a great one. And then I'll show my last Spyderco's here. This one I got at a pawn shop for, I don't know, cheap. It's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2 in S30B. And this is a really fun knife just to flip open and close and flip open and close. Like it's kind of one of the best if you just want to like sit around deploying a knife, which I don't know how intimidating that looks or not. So I could stop doing it in public, but it is very satisfying. That's a great one.
Casey had a question.
Okay. My opinion on PSA AKs, they, I think, started out kind of rough, like most American-made AKs. It takes some work to get it down, making the trunnions and everything like strong enough. But I believe, and this is just vague recollections, but I feel like Robsky from AK Operators Union tested some and said that they looked good. So I kind of, for anything that's new production, I like, to be totally honest, I am not that interested in any newly made AKs, except Arsenals from Bulgaria, because we're still getting those in, and they're the only AKs that you can get that are from like a real Soviet arsenal still. Like they have to come in to the US in whatever configuration, probably with dumb furniture, and they might even have to open up the mag wells. I'm not sure exactly what all the restrictions are anymore, but oh yeah, the Polish ones. I mean, yeah, those are cool too, and they are well made. Like Shane had one, and it was great. But I still think it's probably one of those things of like I'm an old enough guy now that I'm sort of set in my ways, where like I like the pre-ban stuff and I like ban era stuff for the value. And then anything newer, and then you have to pay so much money too for the newer stuff. So I feel like if you to get a great AK, you have to spend a lot of money. So it's either going to be pre-ban or it's going to be an arsenal. And then it's just funny how it changed. Where like when I got into collecting guns, AKs were super cheap because they were all just coming in from like collapsing Soviet Union satellite states, and ARs were super expensive for I don't know why. I guess not that many people were making them, but now so many people make ARs because people have CNC machines, and ARs are so cheap now, and AKs are so much more expensive. And you, I've, I maybe just because I love AK so much, but you kind of have to like be an aficionado or something, you know, like you have to like really look into the build quality of whatever AK that you're looking at. And like I said, personally for me, it's like pre-ban for to get the best of the best, where it was built the way it was meant to be built and imported correctly with the right features and furniture and magwell. And then ban era stuff was still built the same way, but then like modified, like the bayonet lugs are ground off and whatever. So they had to make those concessions, but they still were good quality. And it was basically like you're still getting the same type of thing that you would have gotten pre-ban. They just had to like mill off features, which is a huge bummer, but also a lot of them can be, they call it refanged, where you unbanify it. Not all of them can. Like a lot of Mac 90s have slant cut receivers, and you have to get special weird furniture and even stuff that was built kind of right. You still like if it's milled, a lot of times you have to add a lower tang, and it's complicated. But I anyway, that's my general AK philosophy. So this next one's a cool one. This really was the one that got me kind of more back into knife collecting, and it's just a Benchmade Griptilian. But my brother gave it to me, and I just started carrying this, and it is a knife that I use a lot because you can see because it's dirty. And I was going to go over the Spydercos, but anyway, this Griptilian was really instrumental in getting me into really collecting knives again and carrying them. So the Spydercos that I am like, I don't know, kind of almost embarrassed about having are these limited edition EDC Forum Moon Glow scaled knives, they glow in the dark. They're really a nice glow in the dark knife. Like this moon glow material that is on the scales is the brightest glow in the dark. A glow in the dark knife is kind of a hugely dorky thing, and I guess that's why I'm sort of embarrassed by these. I happened to get these in 2 different eBay auctions, and they're set up one to keep in your left pocket and one to keep in your right pocket. So if I ever want to go out like the hugest dork in the world with 2 expensive, rare, glow in the dark knives, I'm set up to do it. So those are those. I wish I could demonstrate how much they glow in the dark because it is crazy, and they're rare because they were just done for that forum, the EDC forum, and they did a Manix 2 version, but the Moon Glow wasn't as good. I had one of those and sold it because I was unimpressed with that version. This is one that I got from my wife, and it is an axis assisted knife, and it's another Osborne design. This one is, you're never going to be able to read that, but it's got the Tanto blade. It's nice. This is a good handy pocket knife. Yes, rave knives, absolutely. I think it's Chris Reeves that makes the fancy titanium frame lock knives that are like, God, I can't remember how much. I think some of them are like $600. I always thought a titanium frame lock would be cool, but I never wanted to spend that much money. So Benchmade had made one for a while, and gosh, I used to remember what all the names of these models were. Maybe 750 or 150, but that's what this is. It's a no longer in production, or long since in production, Benchmade that they made as a all titanium frame lock. And I wanted this one, I guess, for that reason. I wanted a frame lock, and just like with knives, if it's not made anymore, like with guns, not like with knives, like with guns, if it's not made anymore, to me it's desirable, and it's kind of the thrill of the hunt a little bit. So I'll finish up the Benchmades. This is another Osborne design. I have a ton of Osborne designs. This is a limited edition one that was made. Can't remember how many they made, but there's like one knife shop got the ones with these G10 frames with this colorway, and it has M390 steel instead of whatever the normal one comes with, S30V or something. And it's just a big chunky knife. It's nice to have like this is the 810. What's his name? It has a kind of a cool sounding name. I can't remember what it is. But it's a cool one. I like big knives sometimes. Contigo. This is a really big knife, and it's one of my favorites. Benchmade made this. Most people would know it because, well, if people would follow knives closely, they would know it from it was a Harley Davidson branded knife that Benchmade did, and this one is actually a prototype from December 2006, and it's just cool because it's like a 5.5-inch blade or something and a folding knife. It's kind of cool. So like if you look at the handle, you're like, well, how does a blade that's this long fit into a handle that's this long? And when you fold it, this thing comes out and holds it in place. So then it adds that extra distance. It's a, I guess, like in guns, things that have a cool design I like. And so that's why I really like this one. The fact that it's a prototype with the Benchmade logo on it and not the Harley Davidson logo is another reason why I like it so much. Not that I have a huge thing against Harley Davidson, it's just kind of cooler that it's its own thing. So last Benchmade is this HK branded. I forget what they called these ones, but it the 14440, or they made 3 with under the HK branding deal. Like it's like a what do they call that? It's like a cross promotion branding thing where like HK lends itself to Benchmade and Benchmade like lends its knife making skills to them, and then they both get a cool thing. I think one of the fundamental rules of knife buying should be never buy a knife that has a gun manufacturer name on it, because usually it's just junk. Like they made a deal with um, Joe China to make a knife with Remington on it, because people will see a gun brand name that they like and they'll say, oh, okay, I'll buy that, and it's just crappy. But in this instance, it's a rare thing where 2 great companies did a branding deal and they made a really good knife. This one's particularly cool because um, that's so funny that Jason brought up the Infidel. I don't have an Infidel, and the reason was when I was looking between the Infidel and this one, the deployment is so much faster. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it really deploys super fast. And the Infidel to me is a little sluggish. And Benchmade started making these again under their own name. They called it the Phaeton. And I was messing around with the Phaeton, and the HK one is actually faster than the Phaeton too. The like milling work on the handle is nicer on the Benchmade Phaeton, but for speed of deployment, which to me is like the coolest part of an out the front knife, these HK ones are the best that I've found. And it's kind of sucks because it's hard to buy out the fronts, like like second hand, like on eBay, which I did get this on eBay. I think it was because someone listed it with a buy it now price, and rather than like I bought it as soon as they listed it, and then rather than eBay like canceling the transaction, they just let it go through, because I don't think they want you to sell stilettos on eBay. Um, but I got this one for a decent price, and I really like it. It's one of my favorites. And I don't have a lot of out the fronts. So before I get into like the cream of the crop, which has been seen on the channel already, um, I got kind of my most ridiculous folding knife. I've never had it misfire, and I guess this is the only one I have, but it's just always been 100% perfect. So yeah, I have this ridiculous Cold Steel makes a lot of crazy stuff, and this is no different. It's the Cold Steel Espada 1. I don't know how long this blade is, but it's huge. It's crazy. They made this. They made 3. The Espada 1, 2, and 3, and they got shorter as the numbers increased. And I just I love ridiculous stuff sometimes, and so I decided I had to have this. And I actually bought it from Nut and Fancy. He had a kind of like a fan meetup thing but it was like a garage sale also. So it was like his opportunity to get rid of some stuff that he had probably bought for like video testing. I don't know if anyone watches or watched Nothing Fancy, but I was a big T&P'er for a while, and I got this from the man himself, and it actually will fit in the pocket of like a normal-ish pair of pants, like Carhartts, or like well, for me, like Carhartts or cut off fatigue shorts, which are like the two pairs of pants that I wear that are real pants and not basketball shorts. And it fits in the pocket, so I can keep this in my pocket. And if I wanted to, it has the thing where you can wave it open when you pull it out of your pocket. So at the speed it takes you to pull it out of your pocket, you could have like a machete on you. And I've actually carried this around town. It's fun. So the first fancy knife that I ever got was a Lone Wolf, and this is another thing I guess that I watched just from watching Nothing Fancy, because I watched every knife review that he did basically, and from that, Nothing Fancy was to knives is like Forgotten Weapons is for guns for me. Like I watch Forgotten Weapons, and I dream of getting the stuff that he has on there. Like a lot of them obviously aren't possible to get, like a Stechkin or a VSS, or a lot of the Soviet stuff is impossible to get, or like Swiss machine guns or submachine guns. None of those that I know were ever imported, and I've never seen parts kits for sale either. But the things that are on Forgotten Weapons that are acquirable, I put them on my list that I physically carry on me in my phone. I don't know if I ever wrote it down on a piece. I must have. So Nothing Fancy did a ton of knife reviews, and I watched all of them. And from there, the ones that really stood out to me were Lone Wolf knives. And these were designed by William W. Harsey, and they were made in McMinnville, Oregon, which is near where I'm from. And this is the T2 made in S30V steel. And it's just a really nice knife. And it has Cocobolo handles. This knife kind of got me addicted to nicer knives. Like once I carried this, it was like, well, there kind of no going back for carrying other stuff unless it was like purely for usefulness. Then I had to get the same thing, but with the French walnut handles instead of Cocobolo. And this is, yeah, just another T2, same steel. They're both so nice. It's so funny. I could have gotten a T3, which is like the bigger version, but I thought it was too expensive. But now they're crazy. They're so expensive. So I'm glad that I got those ones, and I wish I had gotten the T3, but I never did. But the one that I love the most, and I'm really, really happy that I got, is the Lone Wolf D2, which is really cool because if you're just looking at it, it looks just like a T2. I mean, it looks exactly like a T2, except that it has these rubber scales instead of wood. But the reason that they're rubber is because it has a concealed button. I mean, I'm sure the camera's not that great, but you can't see that there's a button here to make it an automatic knife. And if you close it and lock it like that, because like in Washington, you can't have automatic knives, I'm pretty sure. So this one, like in the really rare instance that like you got the police talked to you and wanted to see your knife, unless they were a knife expert, they would have no way of knowing that this is an automatic knife because it just deploys normal. The spring, when you close it the first time after you deploy it, it like sets the spring, and then so it just operates like a normal knife until you hit the button again, and then when you close it, it sets the spring again. So it's I think it's just cool. It's like a spy knife or something almost. So yeah, that's one of my faves. And I am officially out of knives. Anyone have any questions? Help me out, Shane or Jason or somebody. Man, I haven't looked at all these in quite a while, and it's kind of crazy now to see them all in front of me. This was a decent amount of money. I don't. If you're into, it's so funny how guns and knives are kind of linked. Just I always link them because of. I do have bayonets. I'll have to do a bayonet stream. I also have a bunch of Soviet optics, and I was thinking about doing a stream where I just go over all my Soviet optics, and that's so I could do a bayonet. I can do both, but knives are a thing where if you're into guns, I don't really recommend buying knives as much because guns are sort of a better investment. I guess it depends on what you get. Like if you buy stuff that's super rare, like a Lone Wolf T2, like the company doesn't exist anymore. It was absorbed by Benchmade. So you can't get these. So the value goes up. But it seems like they hit a wall. Like probably because there's only so much money that people are willing to spend on a knife, but people are willing to spend more on guns. So once it reaches a certain threshold, people are like, I'm not going to spend that money on a knife. I'll just get something else. So if you're a gun collector, I don't totally recommend collecting, not especially not to this extent. Seeing them all in front of me now, I'm like, man, what did I do? Well, see, that's funny that you bring that up, and sad. So another nut and fancy thing was this company Survive, and there aren't that many companies that make nice fixed blade knives out of fancy steel. Most, I think it's 1095, like spring steel that people make big knives out of usually. And I wanted to have a big, because I like when I go backpacking, I just take a big knife. And that's how I split wood. And that's what I use the kukris for. But they're made out of just whatever steel. And I wanted something that was like a real nice, like chopping steel, like S3V. And the companies that make them are like Boosie and like Swamp Rat or something like that. I I haven't looked into it in a long time, but those were the ones that were like they use a proprietary steel and like hardening and whatever, but Boosie knives or whatever, however they're said. And they do runs, and they're usually like $600, and then they're gone, and you have to like wait for them to do another run. And so I decided that I would order from this company Survive because they did a pre-order where you get it like an introductory price where it's going to cost more later, but then you're like making an investment in the company. And they were making a 12-inch fixed blade knife out of S3V. So I was like, dang, I mean, it was like $380. And I was like, all right. And they're like, allow for a few months for the knife to ship. And it's been 6 years and no knife. And the company is dissolving. So I kind of got hosed. And I guess that's a lesson. Don't make investments in companies. Like just buy products that exist. Because sometimes people are failures and then you lose your money. So I don't know. if there's going to be a class action lawsuit or something that I can get in on, or the last I heard they were going to try to sell their brand to somebody, and then like they would take over production of the knives. So at this point, it looks like I just got hosed. Yeah, and it's a bummer because it's like for these 6 years, I would have liked to have had that nice knife, but I haven't allocated the money because I was like, well, I already spent it on this one that I'm waiting for, and it never came, and it likely will never come. So, kind of a bummer. It would have been cool. What was something else that I wanted to talk about?
Says, I can't read the whole comment.
Something about Swedish. I don't know. I can't read it either. So, I keep my knives in a silverware holder that I got from my ammo guy, Oscar. It doesn't make any sense now. So, what was I going to say? I guess just, I kind of covered this in my last stream, but if my overall tip, I would say, if you're wanting to collect guns, is buy stuff that isn't made anymore, and or is it going to be made only in a limited run, because that's your safest. I mean, if all right, this is a better overall topic. Buying guns for being practical or as a collectible. And if you want practical guns for whatever reason, whether you do competitions or zombie apocalypse or whatever the reason you have, where you feel like practicality is the number one thing for firearms ownership, then buy a couple. Like, buy a rifle and a pistol and maybe a shotgun and maybe a longer range rifle, and get those set up with the optic that you want and the trigger that you want and whatever stuff, but like use it before you start buying stuff to add. Like, the best investment in your rifle is ammo, like, and using it. So before you decide you need a nicer trigger, you need a nicer optic or whatever, just use what you get initially, and then you'll kind of learn, like, oh, if I had a variable power optic, then I could engage larger or further away targets and close range targets, and that works better for me. And maybe you like just a standard kind of like 6 to 8 pound more military style trigger than you would a 2.5 pound single stage or 2 stage trigger. So, like, for practicality, get those things squared away. Just pick a limited amount of guns that you want, that you are like, okay, these are my practical guns. And then that frees you up to not worry about how much something weighs or the trigger pull or if it makes any sense for practical reasons or not, to get anything else that you think is cool or would be a good investment. Because so often the things that are good investments aren't absolutely the most practical thing. I mean, sometimes they are. Like, if you bought a really nice pre-band AK that could take an optic, and I mean, you could change the trigger out on that too, and you could have a really dialed in practical AK. And 7.62 by 39 is not the greatest caliber for if you want to be able to shoot further than 250, 300 yards, because the bullet drop is pretty significant. But anyway, if you wanted to make your practical rifles cool too, like that personally, I think that'd be cooler. But you don't, anyway, it doesn't have to be. Like, it's funny, like I would go to competitions and I always took my Scar 16 and CZ 75, just because they shot the best, and I had the Scar 16 just dialed in with the 6.4 power optic that I liked, and it just worked for me, and so I just kept doing it. But there were guys like that would look at me with a Scar and be like, "Oh, this guy thinks he's fancy or something because he has a Scar instead of an AR," which they probably put more money into their AR than I spent on the Scar. But just because it's different and not an AR, it was looked at as like, "Oh, this is he's a weirdo or he's fancy or whatever." But then it's funny because the bulk of the competitions that I've done were at the 2-gun action challenge match that Ian McCollum competes in, and it was commonly on in-range TV, and it was fun to go. Like I watched it on YouTube and I went there and did it, and it was awesome. So that was really fun to be able to do those. But because a lot of the other people that went there were like Forgotten Weapons fans, I wasn't the only one that would show up with something weird. Like a guy showed up with a FS 2000, which is really cool. I don't know how he did compared to anyone else, but it was typically a lot of ARs. I think one guy brought a Mosin one time, kind of as a meme, and it was crazy to see a guy try to run a 2-gun action challenge match with a Mosin. And if competitions were more frequent and less expensive, it would be really fun to do that, like run more competitions with wacky stuff. But when I get more set, and you will see that on the channel, I'm going to do competitions again and put footage up. When I do that, I probably will just start out with something normal like the Scar 16 and CZ 75, but then once I maybe get more comfortable, I'll run it with the M249S or something crazy like that, the Madsen. So yeah, that was fun. It was a fun stream. If anyone has any questions, I will answer them, and if not, then I think we'll just close it out. It was good having people in. It's kind of fun to do these. It's kind of funny where obviously it's not that many people, so it's kind of intimate and there's not a lot of chat going and whatever, but still fun. And I really appreciate people watching. It's this is the dream. And if anyone has questions that watches this after, you can write them in the comments and I can get to them on the next stream for sure. And awesome, Jordan. I'm glad you tuned in. Yeah, thanks for coming. And I hope people enjoyed seeing the crazy amount of knives that apparently I have. All right. Bye.